Look, I think it's really good that the vaccine is accessible to people, but
Yeah.
I think that vaccine should just be available for those who want it. And I think that the majority of people will want it. And, either you're going to get vaccinated or you're going to get COVID. And I think that if you've gotten this virus or if you have antibodies for this virus or if you're young and you're healthy, maybe it's not as much of a priority versus if you're a little bit older and you have certain risks.
So I disagree on that, right? I mean, we all live in a society together. We have certain obligations to one another, and minimal interference in one's life, and this is really minimal interference for the purpose of keeping those around you safe. This is what we do with smallpox. So when we moved to Austin, my kids couldn't go to public school here until I could prove that they'd been vaccinated for smallpox, until I could prove that they'd been vaccinated for typhoid. Why not? Diphtheria.
Okay.
That works, and
So
we've done that forever.
There's a couple differences, right? So, those vaccines for those viruses have been around for a very long time. And because they've been around for a long time, they've gotten a lot safer in terms of how they're administered. Like back in the 80s and the early 90s, they used a lot of mercury, thimerosal, all types of poisonous substances that could have potentially had a lot of adverse effects on people as a result of having...
But it was mandatory then, too.
Yeah, and a lot of people got pretty fucked up from it. Like, when I was a kid, I struggled with a bunch of learning disabilities, right, when I was younger. And I can't prove it definitively, but I can strongly hypothesize that once I got my MMR vaccines and a bunch of my shots, I started to experience a lot of cognitive declines, and I lost a lot of weight, and my spatial awareness, my interpersonal skills started to decline precipitously within a very short period of time. Once I got these shots, and luckily I had a supportive family around me, and I had good people that helped me out with stuff, and I had a good work ethic, and I'm fine now, and I'm doing really well, and I'm really happy with where I'm at. But I think that should be considered, right?
Yeah, I think we do everything we can, everything possible to make these as safe as possible. So that it is our job as a society to invest in that. But then, with that said, it is in the interest of society and is your obligation as a fellow citizen. In the same way, right, a lot of my students go off to serve in the military, right?
Yeah.
And they might be exposed. Some of them come back sick. Some of them come back with PTSD or various other things.
Some people get sicker from the vaccine, though, than they do
Very
from the actual
few.
virus.
Very few. Very few. And so long as we are doing our due diligence, we have an obligation as a society to try to keep one another safe. And it's a minimal interference.
I think that at the end of the day, you want to keep people safe. I'm not going to argue with that, okay? But I got a couple points, right? So there was a CDC or NIH article back in January that said that people who had the virus were still having antibodies up to 8 months after the fact.
I saw that.
Right? So if that's the case and the data is still inconclusive, maybe it's okay if you're young and healthy to just wait a little bit and see how this thing works for everybody else. Or if I want to have a kid, nobody really knows yet what the effects of this is going to be on fertility. Like me and my girlfriend, I want to have a family, man. I want to be a dad just like you one day, right? So there's nothing wrong, and I shouldn't be shamed for wanting to at least wait until I see what the birth rates are going to be like within the next year or so, considering my risk level, especially if I already have antibodies for this virus,
So I'm open to the argument that the first one you made, which I think is the best argument, right? If you have COVID and you have the antibodies, okay, maybe then you don't need the vaccination. I've seen medical opinions on that. That's fine, but that's a very particular exception. We have that for every vaccination. You can be excused from the smallpox vaccine if you have certain allergies. So
okay, well that's great. Well then, I think we need to do a better job of being able to test for antibodies accurately.
I'm all for that.
I would rather do that. I would rather do that than have to force somebody to get a vaccine. I think, and you had, when your podcast was Lex Friedman, you talked about freedoms, and people should have freedoms, even if it's a stupid freedom, because of us living in America. And I think that if we had better antibody tests, a lot less people would feel like their freedom is being jeopardized.
These are not mutually exclusive positions.